NWA with Express Yourself. We're all busy expressing ourselves this morning. It's great. And next to express themselves are Myra Dryden, who is the columnist for Local Women magazine, but also she comes onto this show, of course, every month. And we used to kind of focus more on kind of literature. We kind of focused on literature, maybe certain
exposing
books.
people to literary writers
and stuff like that. I kind of wanted to do this thing. Alliteration. We'd pick a topic and then Myra she hated it. I loved it. But then we have this new section now called Myra's Box, which is showcasing emerging writers in Northern Ireland. And today, now, we're delighted to have Chris Wright, who is originally from Bangor, currently based in Lisburn. And so he's on today. And Myra, so it's going to be a monthly section. Just briefly tell us again how people can get in touch.
Yeah, well, they can get it. I'm now on Facebook and email. And you can, my email is actually at the end of my my Local Women pieces. We've also got flyers up around the town which says you can put stuff into Java. There's a box in Java called Myra's Box, and you can leave stuff in there.
That's Cafe Java up in Ferricky Street.
Yeah. More people are now contacting me through email.
Would you please give it out?
Yeah, drydenmyra@gmail.com. That's Dryden, Dryden, Myra, MYRA, @gmail.com.
Okay.
And I'm delighted to, I love to read the pieces. When this man here sent me them, I'd be up all night reading stuff from people. I love it. His is very good. He's great. I just love him.
Thank you.
Okay. So tell us then a little bit about Chris and how you... Come on.
Well, Chris
I love this, but I just relax.
No, that's great. Chris contacted me on the email, and of course when I actually saw his face, I thought, this is a writer. I've got to have him on.
I'm looking at his hoodie. He looks like a b-boy to me.
No, just the beard, and the glasses, it fits. But the minute he sent me a couple of things, I knew that I've got to have this guy on. I did point out something which people will realise when he begins to read, that the 4 pieces, and he has 4 pieces, he may get them all read, he may not, they all seem to be about loss. Would you agree with that, Chris?
I would, but I have to say it's not something that I noticed really until I've put them together, that they are about loss, and it wasn't anything intentional, but that just is...
It's just something I picked up on. One of them particularly harrowing, but I think it should be read out, and I'll give you a little hint. I was watching the Madeleine McCann the other night, the documentary about the child being abducted. That's a little hint as to what's coming. But
that's actually on Netflix now. I just watched the first episode last night, so that may resonate.
Yeah. It's not about her, but it's really powerful. It knocked me out. Especially since my little grandson's saying, Chris is called Jack, But if he's got a lot of references in his work, particularly Irish ones in the first piece. In fact, when you said you were thinking of Brexit, I thought, oh my God, we're going to get Brexit. But no, he was thinking of the border when he wrote the first one. Not particularly thinking of...
No, it was more. It was the border. Obviously, is in the news at the minute, and I was looking to write a piece about. The border means so many different things to so many different people, and we all look through our own filters at the border. And this was trying to deal with the fact that it's not the same for everybody. And then at the same time, I'd been at a Grania Hawn's album launch in Belfast, and she talked about the hawthorn tree in Irish mythology, and I was looking into that, and the 2 ideas kind of merged into this story called the shape-shifting hawthorn tree.
Yeah, and you'd wonder how the hawthorn tree is going to fit in with the border, but you'll hear now if he's going to read the first one. Is that okay, Chris?
Okay. The shape-shifting hawthorn tree. The hawthorn tree stands sentinel at the edge of the field, its crooked shape inked against a grey sky. It is the cusp of May, and the bloom has frosted the branches, as if its own declaration of the end of winter is tinged with melancholy and regret. I kiss the cold skin of the urn before giving her up to the earth. To the world, this is just a hawthorn tree, but not to me. It is a tree of many names: Shgayal, the peasant tree, the quick, the commoner of the wood. It has held its watch for hundreds of years, most of them marking nothing but itself. When my grandfather's ancestors made their way here from neighbouring shores, it was given a purpose, the purpose of men. It was to mark the boundary of Campbell land. 3 centuries later, its services were required once again, to the delight of my grandfather and dismay of my grandmother when it was used to mark the boundary of a new state. Grandfather was happy that his land had become the last bastion, the remnant of a receding empire. Grandmother was distraught that it had to be that tree that wrenched worlds in two. Locals suggest the margin run a metre below the most southern protruding root, as no Irishman would put a boundary through the middle of a hawthorn tree, but the line came down with the stroke of a pen. That tree doesn't belong to any of them, she would say. She clung to the tales her own grandmother told her, tales honed in cold and rocky land, in hunger and in pain. The hawthorn tree belonged to the true natives, the She. It guarded the entrance to the fairy realm and as such could never be touched for fear of incurring their wrath. Even in the coldest of winters, when fire could be the barrier between life and death, none could be cut from the tree. Every year on the eve of St. Bridget's Day, we would cut strips of coloured cloth and take them out to the tree and tie them to the branches for Bridget to bless as she roamed. Grandfather would remain in his chair, unconcerned with Bridget, a topped-off whisky beside him, glasses resting on his ruffled forehead, eyes on the news with gasps and tuts and shakes of the head. He often remained at a distance from such things, but I saw the want in his eye. It was her thing, and she had the rights to it, but he yearned for the connection she felt, yet it remained unreachable. He had lost the ways of his forebears and wouldn't slight them by partaking in the ways of his new home. He had become a child of nowhere, unaccepted in his native land as well as the home his ancestors chose. He passed that insecurity on to my father, who referred to that old tree in the backfield, expressed as fact with empty words. When he'd had a drink, he spoke differently, offering a story with a misty eye and his mother's half-smile, the same look that warmed her face as she wistfully decanted centuries-old folklore to young ears in front of a peat-stacked fire. It was all things to him, a fort, a father, a friend. Its arms were strong when they held him, yet they were weak the day they tried and failed to catch him, his head bumping on brittle winter branches, elbow fractured on frozen ground. A few days of recovery and he was back in the tree, swinging and climbing and hanging the way a wee boy does, shouting, "Are you watching me, Ma? Ma?" Grandfather looked upon that tree with reverence. It was a soldier at his post, a defender of his realm, the friend he lost in France. He was always safe in the sight of it, comforted by the knowledge that it would protect him. He had overestimated its ability the night they came, for the tree had never seen the small, shiny lumps in their hands, nor cold eyes and thin lips blazed through cotton. A dozen snaps of metal and smoke, and the peppery tang of sulphur in the air. Grandfather slumped over root, red leaching into the ground, the tree nourished and strengthened by his sacrifice. After he died, my grandmother told me to lay my fears that my grandmother was a part of that, or my grandfather was a part of that tree. He watched over us in a way the old tree never could. I would sit out there for hours telling him about school, about my parents, how my brother was the bane of my life. Years passed and all changed. The tree became less and less like the fading memories of my grandfather and more like my grandmother. I considered maybe he'd been turning into that tree for years, and that night was his time to be given up to the earth. Soon it would be her turn, as the cracks and ripples in the tree mirrored the wrinkles on her face, the knots of the branches just like her knuckles, swollen with fluid and time. Yet there was hope. When the soft bloom lit up the branches like her bright soul eased the years, she held on to see me become the mother before she became the tree. When I talked to my own mother about scattering my grandmother's ashes at the old hawthorn tree, she stared at me, brow furrowed and raised. She knew nothing of its many lives. To her, it was just a tree. Now I stand on its roots, looking out to see what they all see. Dusty remains skitter at my feet in the warm spring breeze. I do not look at the tree, for all I will see is me.
Oh, gorgeous, like really beautiful piece.
Yeah, I love there's even a reference to, well, I took it to be the First World War. You know, he lost his friend in France. You know, although it could have been the second. But there's so many things there that would resonate. You know, but it's a lovely Irish piece. I liked it. So we were going to, I mean, I know I said, I asked you what were your influences for, could you fill in a bit of background on these, but they seem to just come to you. You're not really influenced by it.
Yeah, they come in so many different ways and come in the form of a character, of a place, something happening. It just, there isn't any control. It just, whatever way it comes to you, it comes to you.
Well, I like that one because there's the 3 characters in it, and I enjoyed that. Do you want to go at the Winter Solstice?
Yes, Winter Solstice. This is probably one from watching too many crime documentaries.
Are you big into crime documentaries?
The ones on Netflix are very addictive, so they are, and I don't know if maybe that seeped into my writing somewhere. But this one was recently published in the Bangor Literary Journal. I was after this one when I'd read that at their launch. A few people had said, "Oh, that's very dark."
Yes.
And I'd never really thought of it like that, But so this is Winter Solstice. Jack saw nothing. He didn't see the speckled sun chase the leaves, nor the frosted spider's web that entombed the barren bush, reaching from sucker to stem. He didn't see the people pass, all wrapped up in padded clothes, nor the air mist around their mouths. He didn't see them search the brush and bush nearby, nor the brown-footed dog that sniffed the air for trace of him. He didn't see the man who stole him from beneath his mother's eye. He didn't see the grip around his throat, his burning lungs, his darkened eyes, nor Mummy's whereabouts. He didn't see the hardened ground he was cast upon, nor the skeleton canopy that stretched across the sky. He didn't see the worms that wriggled underneath, nor the maggots that crawled within. He didn't see the contorted face of the girl who found him cold.
God, I'm really getting the creeps now with that one. So that comes from all your Netflix thrillers?
I think so.
Well, I mean, it's great for people to have an experience recorded, even as harrowing as that, and I'm sure, mothers or fathers, anybody who suffered that fate, couldn't read that really. But I think it deserved an outing, definitely.
It's near that wee idea of, it can happen so quick. You look away, and I think that's what that story started out, was that, you could look away and look back and a child's gone, and I think that's where that one came from.
And that's what seems to be kind of resonating with, I mean, just in that first Netflix documentary, the first part of the Madeleine McCann story, I mean, that's what they said. That's what with all there's so many children apparently abducted all the time all over the world. Which one? But they don't all make the news.
That's right.
So that was one of the things they said in the first part, was that when it seems to kind of resonate with people, like someone kind of in a supermarket and they're in the next aisle, or they're literally in the next room. You can't kind of keep an eye on kids all the time. It's a weird one. But that's a flash fiction
Flash
piece.
fiction, yes.
What's flash fiction exactly?
Well, flash fiction are short stories. The word count for them does vary, but generally anything under 1,000 words would be considered flash fiction. It's very much a growing genre at the minute. It's very, very popular. And it can be anywhere from 50 words to 1,000, and I think the whole point behind it is it's nearly one of the hardest forms, because every word must fight for its place in it. And there's lots of magazines now that are now starting to cover flash fiction solely.
Right. I actually think, I always say this to you, Mary, I think short stories are the hardest thing
They are.
well, actually comics probably are the hardest one, because they have the least number of words, but short stories the hardest thing to write.
So compactly,
so flash fiction is probably
space,
even harder, but that was really interesting.
It's a great exercise as well for anybody looking to write any sort of a book or short stories, to get used to making your writing compact. It's a very, very good exercise, and certainly recommend that if anybody, writers out there, haven't done it, give it a try.
Right, so we've got another one, another lost. I'm sorry, as you keep pointing this out, another not so dark.
I'll try and write some cheerier ones for next time.
We'll have you back. You've got to be cheerful. We've got to say, gain, not loss.
That's it. That's it. Maybe this is a collection, and I'll do a nice happy collection.
Do a lost collection and then do a happy collection. You're well on the way anyway to the lost collection.
I planned out. Okay, this is called Count Your Breaths. Fine dreams of sweets and the soft lilt of her fading lullaby are torn at the fabric. Broken by a terrible wail, like a bird calling out a predator, until I have no choice but to rise and gasp and plunge through the surface of a stormy sea. When the distress call doesn't become another, and the sound stretches into the distance, I know what is coming. The patter of quick feet, the swoop of the bedroom door, grandmother's warm hand resting in mine just for a second, in a moment of pure peace. We take off down the stairs, out into the biting November cold, towards the shelter at the end of the street. "Count your paces," she shouts, and we try to beat her score from the night before, and despite knowing that another fleet of German bombers sweep in from the southeast, I am safe, as long as she's at my back, tracing the steps of my small feet with her own. The dust that clings to the city weighs her breaths and slows her steps, gifting me more time, lingering in dreams. Slower and slower it takes until full minutes pass for her to shuffle to my room, calling out my name in increasingly strained tones, chased by rack and cough. I guide her down the stairs and through the front door, the pinching air stealing her stride. I pull and tug with all my little muscles can muster. "Count your breaths," I shout, like she is in control. She falls by the side of the road, slumping down the neighbour's wall. Looking up at me with a rueful smile, I count to 3 and count no more.
War again.
No.
I know, but it's obviously a writer's not going to give everything away at the start. So it's great how things evolve, how things develop, and you suddenly realise, I know what this is about. At first it doesn't seem obvious, but then that would be wrong, as a writer, to say, to give everything away. But I enjoyed that one as well. And you say that's going to be taken up by London, or was that taken up by a London magazine?
The Wellington Street Review, which is a new literary magazine in London, will be publishing that next week in their debut issue.
With London having had the Blitz so badly, you would think they would, even now we're still talking about it, let's face it, they would absolutely love something like that, So your influence, I was going to ask you who do you read? I mean, when did you start writing? How do you go about the process?
Well, I started writing through just a really, really strong love for reading. The first book I can really remember that influenced me was Matilda and the Roald Dahl books, and I remember reading that one over and over again. Since then, I being a writer, I think one of the best things you can do is read everything. You have to read, and you can't just read one genre. You have to, read as much as you can. Another influence, Edith Wharton, and the Age of Innocence is one of my favourite books. More recently, there's a lot of fantastic Irish writers at the minute who are just dormant, so they are. Mike McCormack and Solar Bones.
I've written those down.
Which is that stream of consciousness, kind of like the whole book is one sentence. There's no, very little punctuation and things, and it sounds like a novelty idea, but it's not. It just works. It flows. It's just that entire stream of consciousness.
What book was that?
Solar Bones.
Solar Bones.
Well, that stream of consciousness, I love that. And that the only chapter I liked in Ulysses was the last one, Molly Bloom, and that seems to be that you're describing it. Just stream of consciousness, no punctuation, just straight through, from somebody's head.
It's wonderful when it works. It really is. It's stunning to read.
But talking about loss and the darkness, there's Stephen King.
Yes, definitely Stephen King. I love a good scary book as well. Yeah, definitely love Stephen King.
Did you ever go to writing groups?
Well, I've done a few courses. Rachel Kelly in the Crescent Arts Centre, I did her course, which was very good.
Was that in Bangor?
That was in Belfast, in the Crescent Arts Centre in Belfast. There's loads of courses out there, and it's certainly something, if anybody who wants to be a writer, you have to learn your craft. A lot of people, I think, try without learning the rules because we dismiss the rules, but it's okay to break the rules, but you need to know why and what rules you're breaking before you do it. So I'd certainly recommend to.
So you think you can be taught to write? Then? Sure?
I think it's a bit of both. I think
say that.
I think you can't. You need to learn the basics.
You need the craft,
you do, but reading is very important. Because as I said about reading, more than what just you like is that you can end up imitating someone's voice if you read too much of one author. So you have to be very careful of that. And just read as widely and as voraciously as you can.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the writing groups are good now, and I wrote long before any writing groups, just on my own when the kids were small, sitting down and they were asleep for a while, and I would write at the table. But I don't know, you would know now, but then I didn't know where to send anything because I hadn't a degree at the time in English. That came later. I thought I couldn't possibly be a writer. Sure, I haven't a degree in English, but of course that's all gone by the board now. Some of those brilliant writers have never had some, not even formal education, But,
the good thing about the groups is sharing your work with people. That's one of the hard things.
Yeah.
Maybe some of them you'll read in front of people. That's an important skill to learn. That's people don't have naturally, and just being able to put your work out there and let other people read it. So they're good, and support's a huge thing. There's a lot of authors, particularly the group online locally here are fantastic. There's so many good people, and they're all support. There's no competition and things like that.
What group is that?
Well, it's just literally an amalgam of people on like things like Facebook and Twitter. But if you can get into that, or Women Allowed NI, who do a lot for women writers in Northern Ireland, I would certainly recommend if you are a female writer, get in touch with them. They're fantastic at supporting women writers.
It's good to know that. You've one final piece now.
Yes. Yes.
I had a lot of going over with you, but right, that's good.
Yes, this is called.
To me.
Yeah, this is one I wrote actually recently it was for the Alleyways Art Project in Armagh, as part of the Armagh Writers. So anybody from the Armagh area, her writers also. Armagh writers would be worth looking into. And I wrote this. It's called Ready Meal for One. Diane bears polished teeth and tosses golden ringlets with a smooth hand. Her eyes wrinkle at the corner and her chest heaves. She never laughed like that at my jokes. The street ahead is solid with her presence. I look down at the sausage roll tucked in blue paper in my hand, flakes like dead skin scattered across a bald jumper. By the time I look up, they're passing our coffee shop, the neutral space where we negotiated the end, where we shook hands formally, burying warm to the touch resentments like nuclear waste. I spring through the lifesaver of an opening and take off down the alleyway. Heavy steps take me a third of the way down my escape route when the smell of the supermarket bins punches me in the face. That ubiquitous yet description-defying aroma of fish, flirting and mingling with the earthy scent of old vegetables. Reminds me of last night's dinner, twirling and steaming in the microwave, the last morsel in the flat. I stare into the open back door of the supermarket. I could chance it, slip in. I'd pick ingredients precisely, sniffing and caressing each piece like a pro. The constituent parts of a gourmet meal, the kind I used to prepare for, all within reach yet a million miles away. Or maybe I'll grab the first single serving meal to hand, suffocated in plastic and slipped in a cardboard coffin. Step towards the gaping door. A flicker of movement stalls my plan. Probably get arrested sneaking in the back. They'll think I stole this sausage roll. I'll just go the long way round. Long, thick beeps of a reversing bin lorry stop me dead, my mouth overstuffed with crumbly pastry and reconstituted meat product. Dry crumbs spray with a cough after I suck some down the wrong way. The truck blocks the far end of the alleyway with its girth. She must be at the opticians by now. Steps away from line of sight. I could hide in a bin, safe amongst the food that could have been put to use instead of discarded in its prime to waste away in an alley. Or I could be the man she always wanted me to be. Take my punishment. His smirk, her roaring red cheeks. That's him. That's the man I wasted my life on, she'd say. I could tell her all the things I never said, when pride and anger caught in my throat and filtered my words. I'm sorry I wasn't enough for you. I'm sorry I slept with her. I wanted to hurt you like you hurt me. You told me you can't do wrong by doing nothing, yet that was the very thing that tore the soul from me. I burst out of the alley like a firework, pumped for the scene I've prepared in my head. She's already gone. The street's hollow. Dry leaves skitter harshly along the pavement.
Brilliant.
He lost his girlfriend again, and once again lost. And at first, I told you, I thought, my goodness, was the way some of these syntax or some of the sentences went, I thought it was a man, especially when you said, that's him, that's the man I wasted my life on. And I said to you, I thought that was it a gay relationship that he looked at the man and said, I wasted my life on him, now he's gone with a girl. But it wasn't that, it was my fault. I didn't take it up right. But who couldn't, it resonates with lots of people who couldn't identify with that, and all of the pieces here, people can identify with so easily, and as I say, I've always said it, and I'm quoting it when I say it, we read to know we're not alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when we know we're not alone, and we see that what we're doing is okay because other people have done it before us and they've come out the other end, and that's what I find interesting,
Okay. Well, come here. That is probably all about we've time for today. I'm just laughing here. It says Chris studied politics at Queen's University.
Yeah,
he was unsure what to do with his life. Given the lack of direction inherent in local politicians, as well as his lifelong dream to get paid to do nothing, Chris appears to be well qualified for a job at Stormont. So I was very amused by that. So you're probably someone who may be interested in the Festival of Ideas and Politics taking place next
Absolutely.
week in Belfast. There's a lot of stuff going on now for people like you. I guess you're moving more into the writing stream of things. Oh, you never know. We might see you in a new party popping up at some time. Anyway, that is all we have time for today. So thanks to all the guests who came on this morning, to Felicity McCall, who was in earlier, Saoirse O'Doherty with his pop-up hedge skulls, also our naked politician, Rick Mullen from the Naked Politics Show, and of course Chris Wright, who came from Lisbon this morning, and Myra Dryden with Myra's Box. And do check it out, because Myra loves to hear from you. So it was beautifully read, and really enjoyed all your pieces.
Thank you, Chris.
Indeed, and have a good week. And we will be back next week to do it all again, finishing off here with less ketchup. And stay tuned now for Ryan Keyes, who will be joining us very, very soon with a very interesting show.